also were playing in a band with Jack Antonoff.
I went to BU to major in what?
I'm like, this guy looks just like Michael Keaton. You want me? We're singing a different key. But
Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode. When are we going to retire that?
I don't know.
Episode 55.
It always feels weird with another person here.
55. Do you remember the early days of YouTube? 55.
I don't remember that one.
You do.
I do. You know what? If you hadn't told me where it's from, I would have not remembered. But yeah, that's old school. That's Ebaum's world.
Yes. Back in the day when YouTube was just like really random, sitting watching with your friends, there was a video.
There's a bunch of cultural references that, like, for whatever reason, whatever I was doing at the time was just Ebaum's world. I swear I'd heard of it. I know it was a big moment in time.
Yes.
I have no idea what it is.
I'll tell you.
No idea.
There's a guy walking around now named Ebaum who said, "Oh, fucking my idea." Basically, Ebaum's world was the place for funny videos before YouTube was a thing.
Right.
It was
so early
curated though. Not anyone could put up a video.
No, nobody could upload. Ebaum did it.
Yeah, I saw the most disturbing things on that.
No, you're thinking of Rotten.com.
Yeah, that is what I'm thinking of.
When we were in like high school, like early days, all of it, like people sent around Ebaum's world links.
Yeah.
Check this video out, and it was just a place where some guy was putting up funny stuff, and then YouTube kind of started to become the gold standard of funny videos and everything. And then YouTube became became synonymous with Google, and Ebaum disappeared like the mini disc player.
Wow, he really did do it all.
I'm telling you, he's like, oh, this was all me.
We should find him.
So I think 55, to be fair, was a YouTube video. It was just like a bunch of stick figures. And it was just like, hey, do you know what the number is? My favorite number. 55. Girlfriend's age? 55. My girlfriend is... They look like the South Park Canadian characters.
Is this really your 55th episode, though?
This is number 55.
Yeah.
You are a special guest for 55.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, let's just tell the folks who this fine gentleman is. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Jon Shiffman. Jon is a drummer, musician, friend. He's been in the trenches with me. Philanthropist. He's been in the trenches with me growing up over the years. Early days, deep cuts, Jersey music scene. We could talk about that and get into those days of like the world that we came from, that birthed us. There was like a special community.
It feels that way.
Back then of like of all of us who were like, before there was time to get distracted with what kids, I sound like a get off my lawn porch guy, but back in the day when it was like, play guitar or bass or drums, like pick your instrument. That was a very common thing when we were younger.
Yeah, I mean, and if you kind of get weird with it, it's like there were those of us who were probably playing our instruments, and then those of us who were creating the internet, like actually the people doing it, and like blowing it up anyway, or like making all the sites. But we were at that time age. I'm gonna be 38 next week. Again, it's like that right zone where you're absolutely right. Where I was like, I wasn't really, I'm like screen heavy now, just like the rest of us. But at that time, like coming up in like high school and stuff, it wasn't really about that. I mean, we kind of, pagers were like a little before us, like just beepers.
Yeah.
No one knows what I'm talking about.
AIM, instant messaging was
right.
big.
AIM was huge.
Yeah. That was just a way to kind of set up your hookups with girls at some point. Like you were planting seeds on AOL.
Yes.
I remember
like wait for screen names to come on.
Definitely a time
you're really
where,
excited.
If you made plans on AIM or through like a text message, you had to confirm it with a voice. Because like you weren't sure if like the person you were talking to was actually that person. If it was like a dream. Come over, you'd call and be like, "Yo, I'm coming over," right? Like, come over.
I never had that
enough. You don't
That's
remember
funny.
That?
I guess it's because it was only like very like my AIM list was probably like 20 people of the people I truly.
But like, in those days, it was like a dream. You could have you could say things on AIM to people. Like you could a girl you liked, chat that screen name popped up. You could talk and be open and be this avatar, and then you see the next day like. That happened.
No, but then sometimes someone would print it out and they'd come into school with the printout of a conversation.
Who did this to you?
Who
are you?
Like,
who are you?
You were already on like some dark web.
We had mean girls in our grade. We had mean girls.
Michael was a predator in high school.
No,
I know who you're thinking of.
But we had bullies. We had bullies in our grade.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you could like do these things and you could like really push as like a 15-year-old to like your classmates when you're like a teenager. Remember that? I remember that.
No, it's true. I mean, like, I mean, we still have it now, right? Where like there's a persona like behind like behind your email or behind, like you can take tones in text messages. It's like, I really don't want to have this real conversation. If you want to not be, if you're like a not confrontational person, which unfortunately, like a lot of the time I am, like I could really make this hit the way I want it to behind like a text or a message. Yeah. And the same goes at the beginning where it was like, you'd have the courage to say something to a girl you like that you definitely wouldn't say to their face. Like,
yeah, well, I think you're hot, and just leave that text up there and be like, I just said that. Pause. Bubble.
Yeah. It's true.
Really? Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you think you could just do that? And that vibe is very distinct. Just sitting there like,
and then it would kind of,
and then it all happens, and the next day you're just like,
right. It all fizzles back to reality.
You walk past each other like, that's it. It's like you had a dream.
It's true. Yeah.
You could play in your seats. But if you weren't an athlete in high school, did you play sports in high school?
I only was good at baseball.
Right.
But that's it.
That's seasonal. It's not enough.
Yeah, I mean, like I went to Teaneck Public School, and everyone was like the football team was real. We ran. It was an interesting and cool time. I think my age group, because there is a lot of professional musicians.
Yeah.
Which is strange in and around that age group realm from our area.
Yeah.
And also was random when in Teaneck High at the time, which was pretty cool. Tamba Hali, I don't know if anyone was a football fan, but like, Tamba Hali was there. He ended up being like all-pro NFL player, and a guy in my grade, Lance, he was a year ahead of me, and a guy, Lance, also made the NFL, Lance Ball. And these are the only two people. Yeah, and he was. And he was.
What?
These are the only two NFL players to come out. Maybe one guy like back in the day from Teaneck High made it to the NFL. So it's strange that in just 2 years there were two. You know, so those kind of things happen in these waves of like. Wow. I guess it's sports and arts and. Funny enough, Teaneck's summer camp was called Sports and Arts.
Yeah, Jack, and maybe just throw it.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
But yeah, you know, it's like it's weird that kind of happens in waves, like things like
there's something in the water.
There's a bunch of writers also. I just found out Damien Lindelof who made a Lost.
He's a little ahead, right? But
he's not that much older, right?
I imagine he's
10 years.
I would say he's at least 10 years older than me. Maybe probably close to 50. Yeah, that's not that long. I mean. Yeah. Well, you know, like Teaneck, like you know, we're a New York hub, a suburb, you know, and there really is. I guess it's always changing, but there is that kind of feeling outside of New York, like that when people either like don't have the money to live in a lot of space in the city, or they just need a little more space.
Yeah,
there's still that same creative New York juices flowing, and they just kind of pop right out.
So it's funny because you were in the same sort of like physical community that we were all in, but you were in like we grew up very adjacent to that world because we're cut off by the yeshiva high school system that insulates us in this bubble. And you knew about it. You just weren't in it.
Okay, so for me, like the reason I even know you, so I come from my dad's side of the family is Reformed Jewish. You know, my grandfather's up in Westchester. So there's that. But my mom's name was Joanne Immaculata Bernadette Kennedy. So this is not a Jewish person we're talking about here. So
you have rich WASP genes and
poor
Jewish
WASP.
genes.
New Milford, New Jersey, Kennedy. Like middle income. You know,
like
at
your
the most.
data point from your grandfather being Jewish is he's in Westchester.
No, I'm saying he's close. No, he's close.
The very first time you came to my house in Englewood, you walked in. I remember it was with like the Barbary Coast guys. You walked in, and you were just like, "Sorry, can I look around? My family's poor."
I said that?
Yeah.
I hope it was comedy.
It was. I was laughing. You were just like, "Stop." I was like, "Hey," you're like, "Shh. I'm just gonna look around."
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
I thought it was funny. Everybody laughed. But you guys were like, I remember being semi-auditioned. Like I was in there it was Alex Halpern, I think, maybe. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, I think there was some combination. Like there's a lot of, you know, well, anyways, with that, because, and then when Teaneck Public,
I know nothing about your family. It was just a joke, I remember. I could be remembering it wrong.
No, that sounds like self-defacing, you know, like a joke I would make. Well, you know, I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up rich, but
But you're adjacent to this. It was different. You were saying how we came across each other.
Yeah, so that's what happened is when I went to Teaneck Public High, Teaneck High School, and the public school system, Teaneck High School, there were musicians, but funny enough, like people getting kicked out of places like fresh or just musicians.
Defectors from it. I remember, didn't Yakir come to Teaneck?
Exactly. So without getting too specific on like, The bottom line is music did bring us together. Like we were like, you know, I was listening to similar stuff that kids from yeshiva around were listening to, and it didn't matter that you know, I was kind of from more of a from the public school and like didn't grow up with you guys. Once we all started playing music, then it was kind of like, oh, musicians just meet musicians because that was fun.
Was your family like, was there Judaism in the house, or it was just kind of like an understanding?
It was very
half and half.
It was like, you know, high holidays early on would go with my dad's family, but not a religious upbringing in any way. And now I feel more connected to Judaism because I married Abby, who you went to school with. Right. And her, you know, her father's Israeli. So, and I was always really close with my dad's family. But yeah, so it was more like of a cultural like connection.
But it was because we were all like starting to play music and play instruments. I just remember like there became this circle of like the Bergen County like music scene, and also the currency back then. I asked if you were an athlete. If you weren't playing sports, you had to pick up an instrument. Like it was like that we were drawn to like, what can I do? Right. And like I loved it, but it's also like you're drawn, like everybody was playing guitar.
Me,
you know, everybody like wanted to play, like wanted to shred.
Yeah.
You know,
and even for me who did have like one sport that I wasn't terrible at and played in high school, like there was still a fork in the road at some point where like, you know, like it was clear that I was spending too much time on music and, you know, like the coach is like, he knows my head's not really in it. I'm off wanting to hang out with, you know, musicians and do musician-y things and play music. Right. So
was there like band at Teaneck High, like snare, and were you in? Like,
marching band was pretty cool, and it was actually great. It was run by a really cool dude who I always shout out as my band director was a guy named Bob Henkel, who was he's a first call Aretha Franklin trombone player. Wow. His son Matt taught me how to play drums for real, and Matt, you know, he's Blue Man. He keeps bopping in and out of Blue Man Group, and now he's in like he, you know, did every Broadway show under some, but he's also just like a killer, just rock drummer. Nice. He's played with like Tom Morello, and
so he was a student in the band with you.
No, Matt's 10 years older than me. Oh. He's Bob Henkel's son. So and he's also Teaneck High guy, but like he's 10 years older than me and skipped graduation to go to like play for Barnum and Bailey Circus, which is like prog rock. It's not like that. So anyways, so like there was a real like music, you know, the Teaneck High like had it set for you. And I remember when that guy told me like, and the fact that his son taught me to play drums, when he actually said to me, Bob Henkel, my band director, said, hey, you know, if you don't, you know, mess this up and you try really hard, maybe you could like stick with music and you'd have a shot at being a drummer. Yeah. So you know, it's a hard.
Yeah, we talk about all the time, like the pressures sort of in our community, which I'm sure you're aware of like the typical Jewish parents who are like, and you know, of like how we sort of contend with that and deal with that. But was there a pressure for you? Like, do you remember the moment when you were like, maybe this won't just be a hobby? Like maybe I'm a drummer, you know, because everybody's trying it and we're all jamming together. And everybody is having a fun time with it at the time, and that's the best. Like it's all just for fun.
I got to be honest. This Barbary, you mentioned our high school band, Barbary Coast.
I remember that name.
Remember Barbary Coast?
Remember the name?
Who have a lot of like. I was just playing percussion, and Mike Kaziza, who we mentioned,
there's a lot of alum who've gone on.
We were just talking about. Mike is doing really great writing music for commercials. Josh Schwartz is on tour with his band was called Turquoise. Then he left Turquoise, and now they're backing the guys from the Talking Heads. Well, Adrian Ballou from King Crimson sax. And Talking Heads. Yeah, he's playing sax.
I didn't know that.
I know Turquoise also.
Yeah, they were.
Welcome to Turquoise. They started when I was at Berkeley.
Mike was actually an original member of Turquoise. So
it's so funny, like just see everywhere.
And so they're on tour right now. Josh is still on tour right now.
It's almost like this unofficial graduating class. Like we weren't in school together, but we were in this musical, like community school of like people going on to different.
So
things.
I think you guys, you know, yeshiva. Like in your case, you probably contended with more because there was definitely this air among you know people that probably came from the more public school system in the sense that maybe your family wasn't quite as religious. That kind of aligned more to like the liberal reform, like do whatever you want, like. You know, like art is good. Don't worry, it's gonna be great. Which necessarily wasn't. You know, it's hard because it's you know it's not the most. Like,
but the general pressure to like perform and achieve at a certain level that exists.
Well, and also the market's not, you know, to no one tells you that if you're going to go into the arts, then you're the having a living, you know, and you're creating your own marketplace, or you don't really know. It's very subjective of if you're going to hit. Or, you know, if you're going to be successful. I listen to that Smartless podcast with Bateman and Will Arnett. It's just Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes talking.
He's like, yeah, it's hard.
Sean Hayes, the guy.
Nobody's good, but he does.
Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, it's not easy. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And but he does. But he just talks about how it really is subjective in their case, because it's all show business. It really is subjective on who. You know, of course, there's baseline talent levels in all art forms, I guess. Yes. But then after you reach that, then it's kind of subjective. And I guess like any industry,
they talk about political. It on the podcast on Smartless?
Yeah, they talk. Yeah,
like the process of.
Yeah, I think. Well, the only reason I brought it up is just that aspect of it being subjective and kind of being judged subjectively, and making that into your career is a little difficult.
Who makes it and who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and I think
Bill Burr summed it up in this. I always go back to this one clip where somebody was asking him about, like, do you think women can be funny? Do you think men can be funny? He was like, stop. Okay, you know what? Write your own horse shit, and hopefully people respond to it.
Yeah.
Okay? We're all eating out of the same shit sandwich here. It's like everyone's just starting with nothing, and we're just trying to make things and put them out, and hopefully people respond to it. Like, that's his whole thing. And when he put it in those terms, that is all we're all doing. It's not a man or a woman. It's not nepotism. It's not this. Ultimately, we're all just like making things. And then when you're in this world, past the talent level, once you have a certain level of ability you've cultivated, a certain sensibility you've cultivated, we're just trying to throw stuff up as much as possible and see where they stick.
Yeah. So that's how you process it, like, because I know Ami mentioned also that you, and I don't want to like ruin the surprise, but you also were playing in a band with Jack Antonoff at some point.
Right. Yeah. So that's the kind of like I would say, you know, these things like. So in that same scene, there's our high school band, Barbary Coast.
Right. This is early days adolescence. Like,
this is 2003-ish, right?
Yeah.
And there's this band Steel Train going around that had a different drummer, and Jack Antonoff led that band.
Weren't there some members from the Yeshiva High School? Something like that? They were Random Task.
Well, Jack went to Schechter up until I don't know, middle school.
And there was a band, Random Task, I heard about. That was a punky band.
That's Evan's band, Evan Winokur, so Steel Train creatively, I would say, led. I mean, Jack, not unofficial, officially the like creative force, like, you know, lead singer after a certain point, writer of everything, and Evan this kind of social savant. He's also still in the industry. Does like managerial. He manages Walk Off the Earth and a guy named Matt. So he's really, you know, doing really well. In
was Steel Train in existence in the high school days? Or
so I guess they started. Like in high school as well, and they're like maybe a couple years older than me.
Right.
So, anyways, eventually they needed a new drummer, and this is like, I guess I'm doing jazz in college.
New school?
Yeah, I think I went to New School for jazz,
City College too, right?
And then over to City College. Doing research for your podcast.
This is all from memory. All memory.
Yeah, that's
over the years.
That's why you're all right. So
the people going to school. How's your program? What are you learning? Great. Is it good? Is it bad?
So, I mean, you know, I thought I'd get into jazz.
Just to interject. So you guys knew each other in high school, and then you went to BU to major in like math. No. Oh, you went to Berkeley.
That's right. See, I have terrible memory.
Sorry, I thought
I went to BU to major in what?
Mathematics.
Were you about to troll me?
No. I know. I thought that.
I major in accents.
I don't know
he was
going
to major in accents.
I thought like.
Ami Kozak.
Like you had then pursued music seriously, but you had not yet decided to. But you did.
Same time.
Same thing. You were like, I'm gonna pursue.
John and I, every time over the years, I'd be like, so how's it going? Where you in your corner?
So you had a teacher who was like, if you put the work in, you could be a real drummer. Did you have someone? And then you were like, okay, I'm gonna go do jazz.
Well, it's just
so
kind of
the source, the Rebbe of the.
Sorry,
Bergen County Jewish. Yeah, we'll catch up later. You'll get to know me.
It's fine. It's how it goes.
The Rebbe, the source, I would say, the mentor, teacher, figure of the Bergen County music scene that everybody was connected to was a guy named Ray.
Oh yeah, Ray's great.
Ray Ippolito,
classic,
legend, because it all started with, like, you know, word of mouth. Somebody recommended him to my family, and then before you knew it, like, everybody in the Teaneck, Englewood, Bergen County community was taking lessons with Ray, mostly for guitar, but he also was coaching bands, and all of us, like, we all knew him, and he was like the greatest musician and any one of us had ever met, and taught us all how to play music. And we all that was sort of I think that was the glue for a lot of us. Like, even the people who weren't taking lessons with him, like, knew him, and he would come to our shows, and we'd play like these teen night clubs where you could do 18 plus for like Jersey clubs at like the Mexicali Blues, whatever it was called back in the day. It was called Mexicali Blues.
It was,
yeah. And those
no, they've changed it now. Now it's Debonair Music.
Yeah, it's Debonair. But like, what was cool about it was like you think of a high school student band, like, I feel like it was better than that. Like, we were all learning at a pretty high level.
Well, that's kind of what I kind of meant. There was something in the air that it wasn't like
we weren't getting up there with out-of-tune guitars going clang, 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 clang,
and it wasn't like an ego thing. It was kind of like, it was just clear that we all took it pretty seriously, that there was talent hanging around.
There was discipline.
There was like just passion and fun, like wanting to do it. And I think at the time, I don't know how you felt. Maybe you had a more of a, because we haven't even talked about Ari Levine.
We'll get to that too.
Who he was the only one. I was going to say that I think most of us, I don't know about you, but most of us felt like we were going to just be in a band and we were going to like do well as a band. And had that dream of just being like rock stars. And I mean, Jack actually is still going. He's doing great. He's kept that alive and just won his like 10th Grammy. So he stuck that out, and I got to work with him a bunch in that regard. But I was going to say that Ari, who is another dude who graduated with me at Teaneck High, but also was a Schecter guy, was the first dude that I knew just doing Pro Tools and making beats when we're like 17.
He was in Barbary Coast too, just so
he was the first one. Yeah, he was doing
DJ stuff.
Spinning DJ stuff.
So Barbary Coast was a collective. You got like 8 people.
No. He kind of left as like his thing, and then I joined as a percussion. I saw him on stage
just with you guys.
I keep going like this, like spinning stuff.
I'm like, cool. Somebody's would have liked
and he's doing that, and he's doing Pro Tools.
He's a tennis flag.
He's Teaneck also. And then he ends up going out to LA, getting like a shack studio and teaming up with Bruno Mars, and writes and executive produces like the first 3 Bruno Mars records.
Smeezingtons. He's part of
Smeezingtons, one of the biggest production crews.
I don't know.
People who knew
guys.
Him. So
it's just him, Bruno, and this other guy,
Jewish
Phil Lawrence.
Guy, our age.
And people were talking about, Ari's working with this guy Bruno Mars.
So
obscure
but
name.
the reason I bring that up is I think that Ari had some sort of vision of where the industry like was going, in the sense that he's making beats and like doing Pro Tools, whereas most of the rest of it, I don't know how you were computing.
Pipe dream. We were
all just like playing. Like even now, I kind of look back at my like I was getting a lot of push to just be a drummer because it was a niche thing. Everyone was playing keys, and so it was like, it was kind of ego boosting, and so I really did focus on that. And while now I can do other stuff, and I have to do other stuff to stay kind of afloat and like still work in music, I was kind of just ego-wise nudged to just keep playing drums. But if I had looked ahead of where the industry is going and where music is going, might not have been, because it's hard to do.
So I have a question along those lines of how you process, like, you had worked with someone like Ari Levine and Jack Antonoff, who go on to this huge success. Like, do you think it is just subjective and like a matter of they got lucky? Luckier than others, or is there another way you think about it?
I think that, and this isn't a dig at them or anyone that's successful. I do think luck has a play in everyone, no matter how good they are, how they work. Having said that, no, I mean, like, there's just like the components of all of this stuff, in my opinion, which is, of course, there's luck, and then there's talent, and then there's insane amounts of hard work. And some of your talent is like knowing where to put the work, or like how you fit into this scenario, which is very hard. Like, know yourself well enough to how you fit in situations.
I'm not sure how much of Ari's. I'm not sure, because I don't really know. I don't know him personally. But I don't know how much of his focus was an intentional vision-driven thing as much as an interest or identity thing, where he identified or connected more with the production side of things. Because I think I've heard him say, like, I'm not going to go out on tour. I'm not going to play on stage. That's not my thing. I don't even want to write the songs that much. I like more, like he likes the sonic design and the production. Like, that's what I think I've just seen from interviews and stuff. Bruno connected with, Like I realized I could write these tunes, I could do these Motown songs, but I need a producer.
Well, that's what they make a great team.
And that's why it was very complimentary. And he has no issues with that. He's not trying to like grass is always greener, be these other things. And I think that his skill set happened to work out with what was needed in this team.
Right.
And that was good.
So that is luck.
There's luck in there.
There's luck in that, but it's also like you
got to meet the right team.
You're also just like showing
Unless
up.
you really can do
There's
things
that
in
old
a
phrase.
vacuum.
It's like I got lucky, but I also I was in the right place at the right time. I just made sure I made sure to be there. You have to be in the right place at the right time, but you have to make sure to be there.
And by the way, anytime I'm saying luck, I really am not meaning it in like a dig to these people. I just want to.
We're clipping this. This is going to go drama.
These guys, they all suck.
No, but luck is a meaningless thing.
Of course, they're incredible. Like anyone that's
luck
incredible.
Luck just exists outside your control. What's in your control is showing up, so that when luck happens, it seems like luck, but really it's because you've been planting seeds over the years in specific areas.
Yeah, I philosophically believe what you're saying to an extent, and then I'm just like, but still. There's got to be these like outside forces that you've put yourself in a great spot because of what you've done, but you still don't know how people are going to respond to exactly your aesthetic in the moment. And if that's really going to do something or not. And here's what I'll say about that. So take Jack, for instance, or anyone really, but Jack's a great case study because he is so, by all stretches or metrics, like incredibly successful with this stuff. He would be doing this anyway, whether he was getting the the feedback and all the, the success. Yeah. He would absolutely, talk about these, whatever the word is, like the 10,000 hours or the thing. Yeah. Like he's done it time and time again. When we were in Steel Train, so eventually Steel Train needs a new drummer, harking back to what you asked and how I got in there. Right. And then I eventually played with his solo project called Bleachers. Right.
And then to answer your question, I had the teacher pushing me, and he had the teacher pushing him, and we were both in these worlds
we're
together.
Really connected.
Just to button that point up.
I have like 20 other questions about mathematics. I just have to throw out now.
But you're in the
wait, hold on, real quick though for the Jack thing, because it is important. Like he made demos in Woodcliff Lake at his parents' house, and had he not continued to be getting successful, it is my belief that he'd still be believing in himself, and what he wants to do is he'd be making those same recordings in his parents' house, and he'd be loving it, because that's, at the end of the day, it sounds cheesy, but it's like, it really is. You gotta like what you're doing. You gotta like really feel like you need to be doing it. Yeah. And if you do that, I think you have a better chance to kind of let these luck things. So
philosophically, that's where I completely agree, because to me, he's a perfect example of someone where his success that he's getting is fueling his art, is allowing him to continue doing his art. Absolutely. He's not doing the art so that he could be successful. Yeah, right. That's not the aim. It's flipped. It's like you want the success so that you can keep doing the art. And as much success as you can keep doing it, you do it. And like Rick Rubin will talk about in interviews, like, and even if you can't make money at it at this point, like, make what you want to make.
Yeah. No, however, I think that puts you in a good position. I just still think that you still need to get a little bit, like, you could be good at kind of knowing exactly what's going to hit at the time, but
the other side,
you really don't.
The other side of the argument is like calculation, right? How much can you say, I'm going to make music? And then you're like, okay, what kind of music? Because you can make any kind of music. And you could say, I really like polka, so I'm just going to make polka music and hope it sticks. And then there's this like left side, right side brain. He's like, you know what? People are really connecting with this kind of music that I also enjoy. And you find that intersection and you hone in on, maybe if I put a little bit, maybe if I push in this direction, I have a better chance of finding its audience. Right. So there is that calculation. And then over time, it's kind of like dating. Well, it's like your audience is the person you're dating, the figure you're dating. And when you go on the date with the audience, like you can show up and like be yourself on the first date and say anything and everything, but you might turn that audience off. Or like you kind of present yourself in a certain way, and then with time you build a deep trusting relationship with an audience and start to get more experimental with time. Like I've tried to make sense of these things in my head. Like the do whatever you want advice is very dangerous advice.
For me, well, that's 100%. Because
that's a big difference between you, I think, and other people. That's a conversation we have a lot of what proportion is that calculation and what proportion is just following your instincts.
Yeah, well, no,
I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it.
I think it's different for every artist. Like, because even what we're describing right now with the people we've discussed, it's kind of the umbrella we're even just discussing it is popular music, right? Which makes sense to me and you specifically. I know you're not a musician, but
I've heard popular music.
You know what popular is? But I really do try and think of things like that's just like one part of culture right now, and it wasn't even a thing 200 years ago or whatever. So, and there's somebody killing Rachmaninoff in their basement, and that's its own thing. And there's, so I don't know. It's like when it comes to succeeding, on by that kind of metric of like notoriety and selling lots of records or anything like along those lines, there are certain given set of rules that I feel like, you can maneuver within, but not everyone is like,
but then you have Radiohead.
Like cut out for that, right? And then there's people who really do
in my head because the deeper I go into it, the more I'm like, wow, like what people connect to the most is authenticity,
right?
And somebody really doing something and then breaking those rules. But to me, it's like studying music.
You can do it both ways. It's just different. So like, there's no way that people look at Radiohead the same way they do as Jason Derulo. Right. It's like both are technically successful. One are like legends of rock music, and one's like somebody who had pop hits. I
don't even know who he is.
Yes, you do.
Okay, then that's not a
Jason
good example.
Derulo.
He's just got like I don't know.
There's some of his famous songs.
Well, obviously, it's not a good example.
What's his famous one of?
I honestly can't think of one right now.
Talk dirty to me.
Yeah, talk dirty to me. Who, funny enough, that's a really funny one. Evan Winokur hooked me up with a random gig with a guy, and I'm like, this guy looks just like Michael Keaton, but his name's Sean Douglas. And then I find out that Michael Keaton's real name is Michael Douglas, but he changed it to Michael Keaton, and this is his son, Sean Douglas. And it really is. Michael Keaton looks just like him.
He's like, yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because I think he co-wrote "Talk Dirty to Me."
I'm covering in my shades. I'm my eyes riding solo.
Anyways, I'm just saying
riding solo.
There's pop stuff.
All these hit big songs.
And there are other ones.
What's the big?
You want me. We're singing different keys. But
I want you.
You get the idea.
Oh, Jason Derulo.
Just to get up next to
Jason
you.
Derulo.
Are you joking?
No, I know the songs.
Just to get up next to you.
Anyways, but I'm just putting it out there. Like,
in that example, Radiohead are following their artistic impulses, and they just those just so happen to be popular. Whereas Jason Derulo is more going after it of like, what are people going to like today?
Right.
But it's possible that he really feels that inside of him, that like this is the music he super identifies with, which is like.
And what's a better technique to model your like channeling your artistic energy into if you want to try to like sustain yourself as an artist? Do you go, let me try to see if I can write Jason Derulo songs or Radiohead songs?
Right.
But it's a very hard question.
It's a very personal question, I think, and that's kind of how.
And I think the social media element kind of changes it because you can build your audiences more organically with your own thing. But anyway,
No, I'm curious. Piggybacking on that question, like, is there a point? Maybe you're still grappling with this, but was there a point where you decided like, I'm going for what Jack has, or I'm going for what I'm gonna have, or like I just want to drum and whatever I need to do.
That's, I think as my personal journey goes on, like if I'm really being honest with myself, it's like the 10,000 hour thing is a drummer. Like that's kind of what I feel most. It's like
that's where your 10,000 hours are. As a drummer.
That's where I feel confident that no matter who calls, in some, not like jazz, but like any kind of straight ahead, like rock, pop, in that zone, regardless who calls, I'd feel confident to like take the job and like do it. But the personal problem with me is that right now the way that goes is especially being from New York. Oh, sorry. There's not that many ways to really do it. And make a good living. You could be on the road a lot, which I was on the road with Jack with Steel Train when we're kind of like coming up as in our 20s.
Then and you were in college at the time too, or this is
no, like I left college
not to get too biographical because I'm just trying to follow the timeline.
Yeah, no, I went to college for jazz because that's kind of like the only, or you go to Berkeley, which excuse me. But eventually I left for Steel Train. They needed a drummer. We were on the road in my 20s, and that was kind of like a cult following. We were kind of grinding it out.
No, they put in the time. In the days before you could really, this is the days where indie bands just had to do this. There was no social
get in
media.
A van. I mean, they had already done like several laps. We probably did like, I don't even know, like from the year I joined, maybe 2007 to 2012.
And it evolved more from jammy bandy things to more like indie stuff, right?
Right. They were right. It did.
It kind of songs.
It was a little jammier and then kind of got into like a little more indie pop, I guess you could say. But
I saw you guys at
some
Cool
Springsteen
Beans
X. Nice.
in Hoboken.
Those were. I feel like that was before my time.
It could have been, but it was like definitely more in the jam bandy kind of sound. But then I remember you came through Boston when I was in school, and we came out, and it was
it was like a rock band by that point.
Yeah.
And then and then he joined. He had Fun going at the same time, like towards the end of my tenure there, and it was really nice. They asked me to play drums in that band, which ended up kind of taking over like pop radio with that song "We Are Young."
Yeah,
but that was my first taste of like, wow, I would be on the road. I'm already on the road like 7 months a year. Now, like if you're in two bands, and Jack in particular, I think really kind of ran himself into the ground with that particular on the road, because now he's in two bands that are both very active. So
you were in Fun when they had?
No, I wasn't. I never was in Fun. I didn't join because there really were just three guys that were like the writers that were the band. There would be the touring band members. Yeah. So they asked me to do it, but there was a first case. Yeah, I didn't do it because I would have been doing both Steel Train and Fun, and it was just. Looking back, it was like, oh, they're gonna like win new best new artist. Maybe I would have done it, but
you either way, over the lure of the road. I mean, that's what I want to ask you about that too, because when you become a professional musician, you deal a lot with like people's perceptions of you, whilst knowing the reality of like what it's like to do fun things for work. But you're much more familiar with the work aspect of it, while everyone else gets to witness the fun. Right?
Yeah.
So like,
and you're also, I guess if you're not I'd like to think I'm not like blind to kind of the illusion of like, I remember being next to my cousin who got back from the Peace Corps, and we were talking to like another family member, and they were like, the family was like, oh, what'd you do, JT? He's like, oh, I just got back from Africa, like in the Peace Corps. I forgot what country he was in, but And they're like, oh, cool. John, what did you do? Did you get back from tour yet? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, let's talk about it. Like, so interested in that. And I'm like, cool. But I mean, I kind of want to hear what he said. Like, he just was in like, I think it was Senegal. And like, anyways, just kind of like that. Everyone's excited about these things, but there is like a reality.
Like, no, John.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. And I'm too. Like, I love music. And people like, really get excited about art.
But people do come at you with like, man, that's so cool.
And it is,
but you also know what it comes with, the cost of it.
Yeah.
Like emotionally.
And the road in particular. I mean, even people, like even the guys that are, and ladies that are like out there all the time now, as you get older, the reality of the, like being in a different place, if you start to become more boring like us with kids and stuff, the realities of being away from your children and things like that, they're real, and people then decide whether that is worth it for them or it's
that
not.
Life,
and it's I think it's a different balance depending on who you are and what opportunities you got, how much you'd be gone, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Has your idea of success changed at all with having a kid? Of what it means to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say I was trying to kind of come up with it, but even before that. But sure, I mean, I think I made the right move because I kind of in 2015, after being with Bleachers for the first record cycle, which was amazing. Like, so it's like if I was going to continue this,
you didn't. I'm actually getting tour, but then Bleachers came and you joined that tour.
Right?
What's Bleachers?
So Bleachers is Jack's solo project, which does. It's really good band, great band. I'm getting to sub with them actually in Utah in April, which is cool. First time I've subbed in years.
It was post like Fun had that bunch of really big songs, and then it paused, and Jack released the solo record.
It was supposed to be a side project, and then kind of like at the same time, I guess Fun broke up, and then it became full time, which is kind of part of my journey. Which is the reason I joined it was because I thought it was a side project, and I thought the grind of it was going to be perfect because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. He's going to be in this other really successful band, but I get to still be creative with him because he really is great, and he's a fantastic band leader, super fun to play with. And and so I thought it was going to be not as busy as it was. And now he's actually producing all these different records. So he doesn't go out all the time, but still there is that like in pop music and rock music, the way you tour is you do these long extended tours. It's not like in Nashville. Like if you're with a Nashville country artist, they do it like they're gone from like Wednesday to like Sunday, and then they're home from like Monday through Wednesday.
Much more family friendly.
Yeah, and so like that's cool, but it's because their markets are all Midwest and the South, and so they don't have to cover the whole country.
But for like a theater size to a stadium, I don't know what kind of size venues, but like how long are these tours that you're doing with Bleachers?
At the time? Yeah. So right, I was only there for the first record, which was years ago at this point, 2014 and 15, but it is my last like touring thing that I had done.
Yeah.
And we were, I think, sold out Terminal 5 in New York. So like several thousand people, and they just sold out Radio City. And I think the Forum in LA. So it was doing great.
And how long you're saying these are like long
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking.
No, I did
where
size
was
too.
that?
Size of the theaters and venues.
Yeah, like those tours would be, you'd go out for a month and you're home for a week, and you go out for 6 weeks and you're home for 2 weeks, and you go out for, and then so yeah, that's the thing when the thing's really, really happening. Yeah. Really what they're called is record cycles, right? So if somebody releases a record, then it's time to tour the record. When I say record, I mean album, which is
sure.
Which I think I'm just saying wrong because I always do that.
No, but it means it's a double meaning. Because
like a record,
a singular
like
record,
LP, right?
or a record.
Yeah,
album would refer to the record,
and then you promote it by touring.
Yeah, exactly. So
months at a time.
So right. So anyways, so I had to learn early on, or at some point, my thought process was, well, this is great, but this spirals into more of this. So I did choose to kind of take different avenues and try and make it work in one place, New York, which has, afforded me different things. I do more teaching. I do play with different artists. I do some, session drum work. And I do more, administrative, just like get music contracting, getting people together, and
players for events. And
and Ben, I run like band programs for kids and adults. So, it's for me, it's taken different twists and turns based on my, and I would say, like, for anyone, they kind of really just have to try and know yourself on what parts of things are real and what is kind of an illusion about it, and where you can actually fit in and try and
at a certain point you have to like get real with understanding the trade-offs, because there are no solutions where you're like, I could just do all this and have all this and have all, like, you have to have some trade-offs, because if you're going to do that road life, family is going to be very, very hard to maintain. And a normal sort of balance. It's not balanced.
And I would say someone like you really does fit more into, and anyone that is a content creator in this new sense of what that is, which, you can, what you guys are doing now with the podcast, and then, the ways that you can, you make your videos, and anyone that can, compose music. I mean, I'm speaking specifically with music just because that's my, the closest idiom I'm to, right? But for me, I do feel like a little bit of a dinosaur in the sense that, like, I kind of come from this old school player mentality, and I just don't feel like myself isn't being a content creator, other than I have some songs that, like, eventually I'd like to record and just put out in, like, the traditional way of, like, it's that bad joke of the drummer writing songs, but I do feel like connected to some songwriting aspects, but still, like, right now these days, it's a content creator. That's true.
Drum TikTok is huge.
No, you're right, and I would like to get around it, but there are some.
I feel this way. Maybe you can help me articulate it also, because like as a writer, I'm thinking of ideas, and like I have like ideas that would probably make a good TikTok, but I don't have the drive to do that. Like I just want to write and work on projects for like months and maybe even years at a time, and put them out as like one big huge thing. And that's it. Like I don't have that drive to do the small.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because in the sense of, I mean, for it's got to be personal.
A lot wrong with that.
No, there is if that's not, but I think the big thing is what you're saying is like the drive part, right? It's like any of the people we're discussing, you and the successes you're having or you're having or I'm having. It's like, I'm just trying not to fight where my drive's actually going and where it's coming from, because it really is different for everyone. And like, of course, if there's some like toxic, like procrastination. But if you're doing some direction of
getting to it,
no, like that's and I guess we all have to answer that question for ourselves too, right? But if it goes in some direction that's not like what's like really hitting right now, that might not necessarily be the worst thing, because it could be the Radiohead thing where you're really just following whatever thing you want to do, and in 3 years you really might.
Or anything. A lot of people tell me I'm the next.
That's it. You only get Radiohead or loser. That's the two. That's the two options.
A creep. Or, Michael's more of a creep. No, I would say, but the thing is this: like, one thing I've learned in my experience is, you do begin to see.
Oh shit!
I think we're good. Let's watch the.
Sorry about that. We're still rolling. You're gonna bleep that, right?
Yeah.
I just hit the keyboard, guys. I thought I'd shut this off.
Yeah.
Let them know.
You just deleted all 54 episodes.
50.
Told you to take that button off.
The final tour, the final podcast with Jon Shiffman. No, like, to separate men's from the boys, to separate the pro from the hobbyist. There's something to be said about letting go of the idea of this is precious and it has to come out when it's ready.
Yes.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a professional writer, or do you just want to like have these projects that sit and come when you like? Nothing's wrong with either of them, but one will qualify you in one way and one will qualify you in another way. And if you want to get better at a craft, like doing it more often and releasing things more often and getting that feedback, I think improves.
But see, I think half of that is correct. I don't think releasing it more often is necessary. But you might. But I do think you need to be working.
Yes, but you might learn something about your own self by getting input from others, if this stuff is meant to impact others. In other words, if you're making stuff in order to put it out and like connect with other people, like an audience or whatever, or make something, like you might realize, oh, that's interesting the way people interpreted this line. I never saw it that way.
100%.
You'll never get that feedback if you just keep on revising.
No, you won't, but you will get in this weird zone of your own point of view. And that's the thing. So like that might hit harder, but you're absolutely right.
Clinton.
No.
All right. It's like, I don't want anyone. I don't care.
No. I totally hear what you're saying. I truly don't see one better than the other. I see them as personal choices I do think you're absolutely right. You gotta to call yourself a professional anything, you really do have to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, whether where you go from there is,
I wasn't saying to sit on it until it's perfect. I just meant like certain endeavors are longer, deeper endeavors.
Right.
That you need to go deeper with instead of just sort of putting it out and getting feedback on.
I think that's an inherent challenge with like screenwriters versus songwriters or musicians. Like different mediums require different lengths of time to fully manifest. Like you write a screenplay and then that's done, but it's not done. It's inherently incomplete because it relies on it being made. And songs are done in themselves. And comedy videos, like you're doing the content and the comedy all at once. Like a musician has to make the music and then figure out how to contentify it. That's why musicians struggle a lot with social media.
I mean, there's a lot of work.
And it's like, how do you do that? How do you make it into a video that's actually compelling? So, like, I get it. It's like it's not this. It doesn't. The knife doesn't cut the same across all things. But you were saying something about it.
No. I mean, I was thinking, like, if you write a screenplay and then refuse to share with anyone because you don't like, you need to be making like drafts and drafts and drafts of it.
I do hear these things. I mean, and hear stories about. It really does seem like the Hollywood screenwriter thing is interesting in the sense the amount of time people do put into these things and then and then they're rejected or don't get made. Yeah. I mean, people putting years of stuff, and these are successful people. Right. And I'm like, first of all, I am like, where are you getting this time that you're even doing this? But it is because they're just constantly working. And there is an element of what you're saying, I think, too, which is good, which is you don't know how it's going to be received. And so there is a little bit of not preciousness where you're like, but you get, I guess, but then you're really kind of working on trusting your gut on whether, this has been shot down a few times, but I'm still going to keep going with it.
There's a great story of Todd Fields, the guy who made that movie Tar with Kate Blanchett.
Right, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, not
that's the conductor.
It'll probably win an Oscar for Best Picture. It was like a real masterpiece. He hasn't made a movie in 10 years.
Right.
And he...
what's he been doing?
He's been writing movies and getting paid to do it and then being told it's not moving forward.
Okay, well, he's gotten to that level,
for 10 years. Right.
Development deal or whatever?
Which is a certain type of career. Not everyone's satisfied with that, but he seemed pretty satisfied with, I'll get paid, I'll get to write what I want, and that's okay. And then... I think Focus Features came to him and were like, "What do you want to make?" And he said, "I have the script called Tar. You're not going to make it, but buy it. Please take it." And then they actually made it. So it's nice to get paid along the way.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Doing it.
That's
still.
a level, right? And even that gets
that takes that's getting to a certain level of comfort, or like you have a steady stream of people recognizing your skills and utilizing them and paying you for it.
Yeah.
It's not like a guy starting out can say, I'll just wait 10 years, unless you want to do something else to supplement it, which is a practical consideration too. Yeah. I mean, I saw an interview with Spielberg too, where he was like, I was working on Schindler's List for 10 years. I started in 82. Right. And didn't come out till late 90s. And so I get that they were, especially with the film, they're working on these things. But there's two separate equations. Yeah. They're the things that take the time that they need. But the question is, along the way, how are you still doing the thing you love to do and making a living?
But here's what I'm saying with the content thing. I think like you can train your brain in either direction to keep coming up with like quick hits, put it out, get the feedback, or train it in a different way. And like it's riskier with the longer way because if you're wrong about it, you're not going to know for a while. And then you've wasted a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps. But like with the quick thing, you keep getting feedback and you learn much quicker.
And refining.
But when you get up in the morning, like where are you looking? Are you looking for the idea that I can put out by the end of the day? Or are you looking for like something else?
Right.
I mean, and to bop over into like comedians, or for instance, you hear them talking about their peers, right? And literally people that have just put in the same grind and same work, and they just did it. It just didn't pan out. And they're just not the people you know about or hear about, but they're still probably rocking clubs and doing the and of course they could maybe switch it up and get with the times and make other content. But yeah, I mean, the question you're asking of how do you stay afloat? I mean, it really is different for everyone, because even on a personal level, like I have gotten a little more out of the zone in order to maintain whatever identity of artist that I think I want to be, in the sense that like I do take on like admin work or music contracting work where I'm just connecting people and hiring musicians and things like that.
It's better than most. Better than most things you could do, because it's music and it's
well, that's the thing. And then there's a personal choice of like, well, it's still within music. I'm and so I feel like me. It's not like I've completely gotten like a job that's not like whatever that I don't feel comfortable with, because then maybe I'd have some version of myself where I'd feel like, oh, what am I doing,
right.
So I maintain whatever that is so that I can pay bills and things like that. And I've maintained this idea that like, okay, but if I want to record my own music, like this is how I'm going to do it. This is what it's going to to sound like. I don't know when I'm going to get the time to do it right now, because it's, time is a scarce thing. I have a 15-month-old. Hopefully down the line, like these things will be figured out. She will age. There won't be others. But no, of course. I'm just saying, obviously, time is scarce.
But that's a good thing. Being busy, too busy to do the things you want to do, in a way, it's not the worst problem to have.
And even that is like everyone's personal choice of how much they're ducks in a row they want to get things. And some people are fine with like oh, well, I don't need this superficial element of my life or things handled in order to do my art right now. I'm a little different.
The reason I'm generally so bullish on content, I sound like a finance bro.
You're right to do be that.
The reason I'm bullish and bearish, right?
Bullish is right. Yeah.
The reason I'm so bullish about it is because I didn't really discover the power of it or like understand it fully until I started doing comedy on it and like had things start to connect. But I never wanted the reason why I wasn't successful in a particular endeavor to be something I could have controlled.
Right.
Like we talked about luck before. Like sometimes you just get lucky, and the A&R guy happened to be in the club the night you played the song that he really liked, and then Ed Sheeran did this thing. And you can make all these excuses for artists' success. You can make all these excuses for artists' failures. But ultimately, showing up and putting in the work, if there's a way that I can have some element of control over that effort and that discipline, I'm going to do it, because if you did everything you could, then that's it. Then you can be content with that. Right. And like you said with Jack, he would still do it.
You could be content, but you could also not be content, like based on who you are.
But I'm saying, at least you're like, I'm doing everything I can possibly do.
Right. Yeah, you
now it's up to the universe. It's up to that luck. I'm doing everything I can possibly do. So now we have these platforms, and I used to say to myself, like in high school or whatever, like you watch Jackass and those old shows, like, man, if only we had YouTube in high school, we could have made the funniest stuff ever. We could have built fans. Sure. And now we have all that. So like now all of that stuff is here.
Right.
All these outlets are here. All these tools are here at our disposal. So what excuse do you really have if you want to try to build your own audience and bypass all of these gatekeepers who are now pretty much artificial? back in the day, if you got lucky and they found you, yeah, they'd invest millions of dollars into you and maybe help you make a record and build this audience for you. Now they won't do that. You have to do that, and you have to do all the work. That's the trade-off, and the money and investment comes a lot later. But I'm like, it's all in my control, and how much bandwidth I'm willing to allot to it.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the way I look at it. It's like, sure, it's annoying. Sometimes I feel this pressure and I don't like that, and I feel captured by it. And I grapple with that battle, but at the same time, it's that double-edged sword. It's like, that's the cost of it, and I have to watch out for that, like being captured by it and being a slave to it as opposed to being its master.
No, it's true. And that's that's your like interpretation of your art form right now. No, it's not bullshit. It's totally makes sense. And there's no, I don't think there's a debate that content is the way for people to interact with you right now.
And every generation,
and it will be going forward, like 1,000,000%. Like the technology, like there is no excuse to not be able to make content with hard work now, which is great, which is really great, you know, but it doesn't, it doesn't change like what's coming behind it and whether, you're really identifying with a particular artist, right? Like, I mean, then it's still got to, well, I just mean like at the end of the day, there's still that old school, like, am I identifying with this person
that I've created?
And what they've done. Well, you're talking about you in particular?
I mean, when you say this person, are you talking about from the fan's perspective?
Yeah, like from the fan's perspective. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like if the fan is really like, whatever is coming out, I'm actually buying it. Like I'm buying what you're selling, whether it's not in that way, but like I'm really enjoying this. And again, I think it can come both ways. Like the 3-year project that you're like, dang, that looked like it took 3 years and I'm really loving it. Or something that has been made off the cuff and it's like, wow, that immediacy of how that person came up with that is also like, they're amazing in like 2 different ways. And I kind of enjoy that part of things.
And I agree. I mean, it's self-defeating ultimately to be inauthentic, but you can find your authenticity by just trying and being uncomfortable for a little while. And I think people don't like to get over that. Like, hey, like, I get that. But at the same time, also, I would just say that, I lost my train of thought completely.
Gotcha.
I win. Gotcha. No, but you were saying
no. It's funny. There was this quote that literally popped up on a meme, and it was cool. It was
something good.
The artist is like artists are what was it? The artist.
Oh, I remember my point.
Artists are grappling within the tension between the desire to communicate and the desire to hide. Right. And like and that's. I agree with that.
I saw clip of Jack Black walking with Kevin Nealon on one of his show where he hikes with people.
Yeah.
And he's like, all these celebrities, they say they don't want attention. They say they want privacy. Yeah. That's not true. We don't want privacy. We want attention. They say, well, private lives, leave us alone. We don't. I like being the center of attention. And then he's like, can we not do this hike anymore? He's like out of breath. It was very funny. What I was saying is every generation
is good.
In every decade or whatever you want to call it, where someone's coming up in that space in the industry has its MO of how to do something. And it's not always the same in every case, but at one point in time, networking with labels and bringing them out to your show and then touring the city and collecting an email list. And then are you willing to do that? If you want to build the audience organically, what are you willing to do?
Or team up with someone that's going to do it for you somehow.
Are you going to be Dave or Fish and every single summer and season, go out on the road, hit every city, every time, multiple times a year, collect the email list, put in the time, blast it. Like, are you willing to put in that? Or are you willing to try to write a song that you think will have mass appeal and keep writing pop songs and shop around to A&R and labels?
There's no way around doing work.
Like, whatever the work is, like Louis C.K. was shitting on content creators now and the algorithm. But Louis C.K.'s algorithm once upon a time was pitch meetings. And like, that's his algorithm. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get through the door with his show, getting it to FX. Like, there's a whole hustle with that. And today, so I don't really like this idea of like shitting on the new models of the way people are doing it. And you're not doing that. But people are like, oh, that's not the way. Well, it is the way now. And at a certain point, it won't be the way. It'll be a different way.
I agree with that.
But the way to get to the real thing, which is, like we're saying, the fan, the consumer, and the artist, and that give and take, and that real relationship that can sustain you as an artist. There's an MO in every generation, and every decade, every couple of years, it shifts. And staying on top of that, right now, like you said, it's content. At one point in time, it was something else. And depending on what kind of music you make or what kind of art you make, there's a different context and a different approach.
Yeah.
And you just have to be willing to do whatever that is, like required, whatever that is.
It's interesting to me that when, and I'm not to put this on anyone, but like when we're successful, we tend to attribute that success to our hard work, and when we fail, we tend to attribute it to I didn't catch the break I needed or whatever.
I don't do that. Accountability.
I'm always we all do that in everything we do. But like I wonder if you like you're saying that you're gonna do everything you can that's in your control.
Yes.
I wonder if it doesn't shake your way, if you'd be like, all right, I did what I could, and just
I probably wouldn't be okay with it, but I would ultimately blame myself and not the forces.
I wonder.
The best mindset any artist I think can have is it's always on me. Like you hear the guys who fetch and complain, he didn't sign me in the right.
I think as like a person, that's my like philosophy in general.
Yeah.
Like I literally don't. I almost don't care what anyone else does to an extent. Like, I do think you're right. That works well with your art stuff. With art and your art stuff, with your little art projects. No,
but ultimately it's on you. Everything in life,
especially
you can blame
if you
want
to make your life artistic. Is like there really is no better. There's no bigger cheerleader than yourself. I mean, I say it sound like trite, or whatever, but it is true. It's so difficult to do that you better like yourself to a point. Like get over like the tortured part of it to an extent. Like you can still, you're still going to have self-doubt. Like, but anyone I love, you can see the balance and
there's going to be inspirational music playing under this.
I mean, even the
yes,
speak
do truth, it, sister,
do it.
Preach.
And it is different, whether you're going for the Radiohead thing or a comedy. Like, I mean, these are all various crazy different art forms, which is what's great about it. But I agree with you 1,000,000%. With all that said, like you can't fight the mediums that are like the thing, that are really kind of the avenues of getting stuff out, and then you kind of just work within that context, I guess.
And in addition to making the art that you can make, identifying where those mediums are that are going to fuel what you're doing is this. I think maybe that's the separate component that resolves the debate in your head. Should you do this for this person? Should you try to appeal to this? It's like, no, just identify what platform, context, avenue is going to amplify what you're doing.
Right.
I think. So if it's indie film festivals, if you're making stuff you're not aiming for major studios, but you're aiming for indie studios, like that's the left side, right side. You're using left side brain to sort of calculate, okay, right side's created all this and right side, it's confusing. It's not the left side. Left side is actually not the creative side. Right side is. But right side is going to be like, okay, like you're saying, where do I aim my efforts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's always been the question. And
I think it starts though. I mean, even when you're a kid, it starts with the impulse to create, where like you're like, I want to make people laugh and I want to do impressions. It doesn't, and the best way to do that is probably on TikTok. It doesn't start with the best way to get something out is TikTok. So what should I make? It started with like you just wanted to follow your impulse, and then you're like, okay, so how do I get it out?
Yeah, they really are separate components. I mean, I think we're kind of like meshing enmeshing different aspects. I mean, there really is just making stuff, and then there's what you want to do with it, whether it's commercially or if it really is just for yourself. That's kind of why I bring up the Rachmaninoff piano player in the basement. It's like, so he's doing something that, it's just officially incredible in some way.
Remind me of this point, you brought him up before.
No, I'm just saying there's people all over the place that aren't putting anything out. That doesn't change, the fact of whatever they're doing is really incredible, and maybe it would speak to somebody if they showed it to people. But there's that whole component of knowing the scene, knowing industries. I mean, and I would say to anybody that's in this world, like know as many people's stories as you can about how they did what they did and this and that and what the different maybe you can only speculate with
strategies.
You can only really speculate depending on what their life is and who they grew up knowing and what their connections are. I mean, all these things do come into play with stuff. And just because someone is born, like you see it all the time, people are born into connections, and that does give them a little bit of like, I can get them, but they're still got to be decent at what they're doing. I mean, they don't have to be. They could get a little bit of notoriety, but it will speak for itself if they, and it'll be clear if they stink and it's just because they know somebody, or if they're good and it's like, okay, well then if somebody's tearing you down and you're good, but just because you know this person or you're this person's son or whatever, that's kind of lame. Like if you're good, you're good, and you might have gotten opportunities that other people don't get, which is okay, we can have a whole other debate about that.
But also, I would say that, like, you know, the people who ultimately, I think everyone, no matter what advantages you get to start with, you have to put in the work and the time and find something that resonates. Everyone is like, oh, all you need is like one tweet from such and such. Why don't you guys just get on Kimmel? Just get on Kimmel and like that'll be it. And I'm like, you know, you have these moments over time, but really it's just a much longer game than anybody really sees. They see the little highlight reels. Yeah. But they don't see all the
interesting story like with Steel Train. Okay, we got Conan one, and you know, at the time, even then, I mean, again, Jack, who is now probably exactly more or less where he envisioned. I mean, like you can't. I literally think I was like, look at it. I think it said he had won this 10th Grammy or something. It's like crazy stuff that people dream of.
The biggest, like, it's great. All the big albums.
But I remember when we got Conan and we were all so excited. We're like, this is the break Steel Train needs to get over the hump. And we sold 2 records following 2 albums following the week of being on that show.
Right.
And that's insane that nothing happened as far as people buying anything. But what did it do? There was this feeling like by people we knew and people that, oh, this is a big band. And that leads you there and it gives you more confidence. Right. So it's always, there's always something to be gleaned from these things, but a lot of it is illusion stuff.
Yes, and buying your own hype. Isn't it confusing? Everyone's like, you guys made it. You get all these messages. You're legit. You're famous. I'm like if cool. I'm famous to you, I'm not famous. Yeah. People are like, oh my God. But it's like, no. Oh, if you're the only one who knows about this Conan thing, guess what?
And I'm going back to my mom's house to.
But it's the same thing with
after
virality.
Getting out of the van.
Everyone's like, I'm trying to make viral videos. It's like virality happens over the course of a grind of time, and it pops off. But it's not this singular moment most of the time.
Well, people get confused because there are these things that just pop off like very quickly.
Yeah,
but people
or seemingly. I know it happens occasionally, but that's like the lottery.
Yeah, and it does. Those things they happen, so it does get confusing because. Then people think that is the method.
It's not the model.
And,
it's the
it's like, that is the exception. And it's also the thing that's gonna be attached to that story because it happened so fast.
Right.
So it's gonna be part of the talking point about it.
Oftentimes, one second, is this a child? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hi, Bobby. There we go. We'll keep that in.
Yeah, that's it's hard to tour with that happening.
See, you can't do things. But hey, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I was gonna say before I was distracted. Oh, that I just find that in the category of advice to aspiring, if we're offering like any sort of wisdom or gems, because you've had certainly a good amount of experience in this world. It's like when you hear stories about people who it just kind of happened. Like I was just playing in my basement. Some guy heard me at a club, and then boom.
Right.
That's all wonderful and true, and sure, that method can work sometimes where people are just doing their own thing. They're not thinking about it. They're not putting in any sort of strategy or calculation or effort or channeling or aiming at a specific target. Whatever you can derive from that is not so transferable to anybody else because it just sort of happened for that person, and there's nothing concrete you can derive from that. There's nothing you can emulate from that. You could also do your own thing too and do it, but as opposed to, I don't know, maybe it's a bad example, but even like a Jack Antonoff or a Ryan Tedder or like examples of people who over the years, there's a thing that I did where I showed up every day and I wrote, a song a day, or I put in a method, I put in a strategy, and I went to these things, and there's a longer winding road behind a person that you can trace. There are things like that I think aspiring people who want to emulate that can derive much more than just seeing them from the people who it just happened.
I completely agree. I mean, there's no way around that stuff. Like you gotta just. You got to do the work, number one, and then with the art stuff. I mean, again, these cliches they are true, and one of them is sad but true. But it's like if you can think of doing anything else with your life other than artistic endeavors as your career, then definitely do it. But if you can't, then that's a good sign that like. You kind of have to do this and figure it out one way or the other.
Right.
Whatever that means to you, whether you're side hustling in order to fuel, like, your whatever your process is. But that's a big one. Like, I really do feel badly when someone's like, can you give me like legit advice? And that's really all. Like, there is an aspect of like, if you're not just like grabbing every piece of information that you can and trying to figure it out from there, you want like an actual advice thing for me to tell you, and again, I'm just me. Yeah, I work in music still, and you know, I get to play good shows and with really great musicians. That's my favorite part. Is I still get to play music with great musicians. That's always why I did this and why I still do it. But if you need like me to tell you what to do or anyone to tell you, then I feel bad because you're kind of on the wrong path. You gotta like feel like you need to do it. And just grab as much as you can and just keep that moving.
Yeah, well, I know. Like, should I be doing this, or they're asking for legit advice? Like,
well, yeah, like I guess the should I, like, well, what do you know, like more
do
of
you
that.
think it's worth it? That's where the
and I'll admittedly be like, I'm not the best advice person because it's all this vague, esoteric kind of stuff that but it is how I think about it. It's more about like try really getting know yourself, know your taste. Know what you're really into, and then of course learn the side that you're kind of been addressing, where it's like the like how does the content get out there if you're making content? All right, see, and this is why I can't tour because this is the cutest thing.
Wouldn't it be funny if I just lost it?
This is my show. Get out!
You know how many people listen to this?
No, Daddy works for you. But this is great because they're actually hearing that, so like they're getting it.
Yeah. And that's how you balance family life and artistic endeavors. Get off! Get she never understood me.
Yeah, it'd be scary if he walked in and saw your face and he just like fear took him over and he just backed out. He knew what was coming. You didn't have to say anything.
That was perfect. You really did kill the two birds, though. You made the joke. I think they really got it.
I think I saw Dad once at his. He goes, "I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not gonna hurt you."
That was his opening line.
This kid was like, "Okay."
I think it's a good thing to lead with, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael, you had something before, or we lost that? There was something in there.
We've been
as
going.
he was saying.
I really do appreciate.
No, it's good. We're gonna wrap up soon. I'm feeling the wrap up
with your comedy. Like no one had to tell you how to do it because you have this drive and you have this impulse towards it. So like,
I mean, the internet's great because I do see stuff that I just like Rick Rubin the other day did pop up, and he's just like, there is this element of like you have to be confident in your point of view enough to like allow other people's opinions when you feel like you need it, but then there has to be this point of view of whatever it is, comedy, music, screenwriting. It's like
I think that's
that you got to kind of like listen to and refine and feel good with.
I think that's the best advice, and I think that's what happens when.
Oh, they're pranking me.
Oh wow!
You gotta love that.
They know. See, but you're setting this up.
What?
You did this. You set this up with all your all your comedy
it's
and
spanking time.
All your tomfoolery. Now they're playing pranks on you.
Exactly. No, I just think what you said before about like the idea is the flawed question isn't like do you have advice for me, but more should I be doing this? What do you think? If someone's uncertain about if they should embark on the endeavor, then at the same time, I'm always skeptical to put any rules around anything. Because like Seinfeld is always like, it's not for you, it's for me, it's for them, but it's not for you. He's always like, he always has this advice that's very exclusionary. And like, I've lately been thinking about this idea a lot, like of people overthinking something where if I think about comedy or music or art like this, then I guess I'm not qualified to partake in it.
Yeah, that's tough too.
And you don't want to put like artificial barriers or rules upon yourself of a label of, I guess I'm not the guy who does this. Maybe I'm a guy who only writes 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week. You know, like there's these like artificial qualifiers, like if you're not showing up at the club 7 nights a week and doing nothing else, then you're not legit. And that's not what you're saying. But it's more like it should be very clear to you if you feel you have to do something. And we had another guest on also, a writer,
and again,
comedy writer.
There are different processes, but that doesn't mean you're a toxic procrastinator. You know, and I know I just literally made it like toxic. I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that. But that's kind of, there does seem to be this line, and I don't think it's that fine of like. You got to know your process. If you really do get stuff done over the course of time, then you're not procrastinating. It might just be your process. But like, if you're just literally not ever doing anything, it's never coming out, then you're kind of just lying to yourself. You know. And again, that's a line. You know, that is a line. But
and then Johnny Depp will be like, I'm actually a musician. I didn't really want to be an actor, but I became an actor to play the bills.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, funny. That's interesting because till this day he'll say, I'm a musician. I'm just doing the acting.
It is weird though, when people have that, like a Mark Maron or something, who so identifies as a comedian.
Right.
And I know he's probably a decent comedian, but he's so clearly a really great interviewer.
Right.
And that's what other people see him as.
Right.
Or like a Jordan Peterson, who's like, he's a clinical psychologist in his mind, but he so just really loves debate.
That's funny. That's such
like
a good
these are
way
people,
to
the way
describe
people
it,
look at them and the way they look at themselves is actually different. And they're successful at the way people look at them. Right. So it's almost like kind of disconnected from your own self-image anyway some of the time, but that's cool and weird. And I don't know how they feel about it. They might not like it, but it's something. Anyway,
is it locked?
They got it. No, it's cool.
That's okay.
Can we do a volume 2? Because these people are going to get... I got to teach some drums.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway.
I hate doing that. I could do this for 2
We'll have
hours.
you on again. A great hang, a great conversation. Jon Shiffman, drummer, instrumentalist, producer, teacher, educator.
This was a blast.
And thank you for coming on Buckle Up, episode 55.
This was really fun,
55.
Thanks for...
Love geeking out.
I'll do this forever. If anyone actually gets anything out of it, that's great. Otherwise, I just get to see friends, and this is delightful.
Well, that's better.
And monetizable.
And monetizable.
And monetizable.
That's what we can tell our families.
Yeah.
We're not just hanging out and wasting
Did we just
time.
create content?
We just created content on some real shit.
My gosh.
Real content.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Jon Shiffman. That's
Thanks,
episode 55.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much for watching, everybody.
All right.
Where can people find you?
You know, I'm around. My name's Jon, Jon.
Anything
Shiffman,
online?
Shiff. I'm not that good at creating content.
Okay, we'll get there. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
They're dead.